What's going on, YouTube? So we just got done with the start of my MLB ranking series, and now come back with my daily top 10. So actually, these past 2 days were the first 2 days where I actually missed my top 10, and that is because one day I actually did kind of a alternate that I'll be posting a little bit later this week, and that was basically like an alternate story of what would happen if there were no LSU football this year, the complete backstory and everything. You can just Google it. It's really about the Louisiana State budget crisis right now and how LSU football, it's a very small chance, but actually could be pulled. But anyway, like I said, today I wanted to do my top 10 hardest positions to play in sports. So this is a kind of a branch off of my top 10 best sports or most exciting sports in the world, kind of excuse me, encompassing all sports kind of into one video. Now, before I start this, I'm just going to be doing the 5 major sports in the U.S., and that is hockey, soccer, football, baseball, and basketball. So, obviously, if I included all sports, that'd be incredibly hard to do. There are a vast array of sports, and that would just be getting into too much. So, let's go ahead and start at number 10, and I say football center is the 10th hardest position in sports. It is a very underrated position. You have to do an awful lot. You got to be paying attention to the quarterback signals. You've got to really be on the most underrated part of a football team, which is the offensive line, which is incredibly hard work. You have a lot of assignments to pick up on. Obviously, like I said, you got to be paying attention to the quarterback signals. You got to make sure the snap is right, which is also a very underrated quality. And you've got to obviously still block. So my number 9, I'm keeping it in the same sport, and I have football running back. So running backs take an incredible amount of punishment over their NFL careers, college careers, wherever you played running back. It is a very tough position to play. It tends to not be the most long-term position that there is in sports. You have to be extremely durable. You got to have the right body type. You have to really take care of yourself. And there's a reason why most running backs in the NFL do not last past age 30. You saw Marshawn Lynch just retire. I believe he is 29 or 30. Adrian Peterson's kind of a freak in nature. The fact that he's still 30 years old, might be turning 31 soon, and hasn't really shown extreme signs of wear yet. But again, that's a very, very rare scenario. You see very few running backs make it past really the age of 32 and still be going strong. So move on to number 8, and I've got hockey center. So center to me is the second toughest position. That kind of gives away what I have ahead of it, but is the second toughest position to play in hockey. You're kind of a combination of offense and defense. Just to cover kind of the basics of it, obviously hockey encompasses a lot of athletic ability, hand-eye coordination, durability, strength, stamina. There's a lot more, but you have to be able to play on the defensive end, down low in the zone, and you've got to be able to also move in transition quickly, get to the offensive end of the zone, and play down low there. The wings and defensemen kind of have their section of the ice is kind of cut into quarters, or they pretty much only have to encompass 3/4 of the ice, while centers have to encompass the full length of the ice. And over the course of the game, that can very much wear on you. So number 7, I've got basketball center. So to me, basketball center is the toughest position in basketball. Basketball to me is a very entertaining sport. If you saw my top 10 most exciting sports in the world, I had basketball at, I believe, number 2 or number 3. And to me, basketball center, to be good, well-rounded center, takes the most of any position in the NBA. Obviously, for one, you got to be tall. That's not really something you can control. You've got to be able to get good, or you got to be able to learn good post moves. You got to be able to know how to rebound, block shots. Obviously, you still got to be in shape. You still have to run the entire course of the floor. You got to be able to shuffle body position down low. And then above all, if you want to really become a well-rounded center, you've got to become a good free throw shooter. You've also got to be able to develop a mid-range game. You've got to be able to defend well. And you've got to be able to facilitate and maybe even stretch out to being a three-point shooter, but that's a very rare quality for a center. So, like I said, it encompasses a lot of things, and when you're that tall, that is extremely hard to do, especially the athletic side of things, because you are so tall. It makes you a little bit more lanky, a little bit more clumsy, and that's just the way kind of things go with taller people. Now, when I'm talking tall, I'm not talking about like high school center, when if you're like 6'6", you can play high school center. I'm talking about like NBA center, where you probably have to be at least 6'10", and 6'10's even pushing it. Alright, so move on to my number 6 hardest position to play in sports, and I say soccer midfielder. So, I don't know if there's one sport that has more running. I think that soccer actually encompasses more running than cross country, depending on the game. Actually, I'm not sure about that. That might be too much. But it does require a lot of running. I don't remember the exact figures of it. I mean, obviously, you follow soccer, you know it requires a lot of running. If you do know how much running the average midfielder takes, please put it in the comments below. That's something I'd like to figure out. I could probably just Google it after, but anyway, like I said, it encompasses a lot of running. You got to be able to play on both ends of the field. You probably have to be, I mean, if you want to put up some goals, you're probably gonna have, or probably have to be a good distance shooter. You have to be able to run with the ball in transition. You have to be able to play solid defense as well, be able to pack in the box if you absolutely have to. Like I said, midfielder, mainly your biggest quality has to be strength and endurance. You've got to be able to last through an entire soccer season being match fit. And obviously soccer is a sport where if you're playing professionally, you only get 3 subs. So you got to use this, or the managers have to use the subs wisely, aka you've still got to be in shape, because you probably, I mean, odds are you're not going to get a sub if you're actually starting. So, move on to my number 5 hardest position to play in sports, and I have baseball starting pitcher. So, baseball starting pitcher is a position where you might be pitching 200 innings a year if you're in the MLB. And obviously, baseball starting pitcher is one that it comes with an enormous amount of pressure. Baseball starting pitcher is a position that is cycled in and out yearly. You are putting a tremendous amount of stress on your arm. It's one of the most probably the most injury-prone position in baseball. And obviously, you got to keep your arm ready for that. There's obviously nothing you can do about a lot of it. You just got to be able to keep good throwing form, make sure that you're taking care of your arm the right way after you're pitching. But overall, it's just a tremendous amount of pressure. You got to last about 6-7 innings just to give a quality start. Obviously, hopefully allowing less than 3 or 4 earned runs. Your ERA probably below 4 is considered good. It's more of a pitcher's league now, so I'd say more around below 3.5, and you're doing pretty well. So like I said, a tremendous amount of pressure. You are pretty heavily blamed if your team loses. Obviously, there's 9 or 10 players that decide a game between innings 1 and 6 or 1 and 7 if you are the starting pitcher. Obviously, relief pitchers, closing pitchers comes into play too. But again, there is no more onus than on you to be able to perform. You're obviously the final line of defense. Now, move on to my number 4 position, and I've got baseball catcher. So baseball catcher, you're pretty much commanding everything in baseball. It's a very hard position to stay with for a long time. Obviously, it puts a tremendous amount of stress on your knees. You don't see very many catchers that are fast or that are still athletic and good past age 30. A lot of them that teams like to conserve as better hitters end up moving to first base or outfield. Just to think of a couple, Joe Mauer, Kyle Schwarber already might be moving to the outfield. The Nationals moved Bryce Harper to the outfield. Those are just a few examples. Now, like I said, you got to be able to command everything. You got to be able to block the plate. You're still expected to be a good hitter. And obviously you got to be able to throw down to second, third base, wherever. You got to also be able to back up first and third base on a lot of occasions. Catcher is a thing that requires a lot of strategy, and you got to know the pitcher as well. You're obviously calling all the pitches. So you got to be able to command really the entire field, and you're really kind of the voice of the team when you're out there on the defensive end, or on the defensive side of things in baseball. Alright, so move on to number 3, and I have soccer goalie. And I won't lie, I don't know if there's one position in sports that has more pressure on you than soccer goalie. Obviously, goalie in any sport, it's a whole different set of athletic traits. It's a lot of pressure. You're the last line of defense. To me, soccer goalie, I mean, you let in one bad ball in your career, and I mean, you could be done. It's especially when the World Cup comes around. It's so extreme. It's such a hard position to play. You got to cover what is probably the biggest goal. Well, obviously, what is the biggest goal in any of these sports, and you got to be able to dive across really at any one time. You got to have a good vertical. You got to be on your toes always. You got to be very limber, very flexible. You've also got to be able to have a good leg for punting punting the ball, and then also just straight up taking goalie kicks. So, like I said, it's an extremely tough position. You just got a lot of pressure on you. You got to have a lot of athletic ability, and obviously you still got to be able to command a defense. So move on to number 2, and I've got football quarterback. So football quarterback is obvious. I mean, this is maybe one of the more obvious ones on this list. It is extremely tough. You've got to be able to. It requires so much preparation. You've got to be able to command an offense. You've got to be able to move quickly. You've got to be able to move through multiple reads. And obviously, if you want to be able to be a dual threat quarterback, you've got to have that athletic ability. You've got to be able to take care of yourself, survive, getting sacked, depending on how good your offensive line is, between 10 and 40 to 50 times a year. So you got to obviously hold up there as well when your main job is obviously to take hits. So you're not really prepared for that. You've obviously got to take care of yourself if you want to last long term. And it's just an extreme amount of pressure and mental toughness and physical toughness. It requires a lot of mental and physical ability. So move on to my number 1, toughest position in sports. And again, before I say this, I just want to mention that this is, again, pretty much like all these top 10 lists. It's mainly based on my opinion. And that is hockey goalie. So to me, hockey goalie has an insane amount of pressure. It requires a tremendous amount of flexibility, a tremendous amount of hand-eye coordination, lateral movement, obviously skating ability, strength, toughness, stamina, endurance. I do play hockey goalie, and it is a very large amount of pressure. Depending on where you play, who you're playing with, you're only expected to keep a save percentage over 90%, 900, however you look at it. Now, obviously, hockey goalie does not encompass the same amount of punishment that maybe a football quarterback would, or maybe the same amount of unfair pressure that soccer goalie would. But if you're a hockey goalie, you're probably playing, especially if you're a starter, you're probably playing 70 games a year in the NHL. Again, that's if you're a good one. And that's you're playing 2 games a week. Travel and everything encompassed, that's a lot of work. It's a position that requires tremendous fundamental ability as well. Like I said, it's just a lot of pressure and it's a lot of athletic ability. Now, again, I wanted to say that obviously there's really no way to know this list for sure unless you played all these positions, and long term I've really only played, let me look back through this, I did play hockey goalie, so that's one of them. I was baseball catcher for about 14 years, so I got experience with that. I was a starting pitcher for about 3 years. I've played center in basketball when everyone's shorter than me, but I don't really count that. I played hockey center for about 5 or 6 years. So, and then I played football quarterback for 1 or 2. So, like I said, it's a thing that I like to know, or like to think that I know relatively well, but again, like I said, you can't know that exactly well unless you played all the positions. But like I said, I thought this would be a fun video to do. A topic that's talked about a little bit, especially between me and my friends, and one that I'd like to hear what you guys think on it. Like I said, very similar video to my top 10 most exciting sports to watch in the world, and one that I'll try to branch off of in the future as well. So that's pretty much it. It's a little bit. So yesterday I did my top 10 best NHL logos. If you have not seen that, go check it out. I will put the link to the entire top 10 playlist in the description below. All the videos I think have been pretty entertaining ones so far. And today I'm going to be doing the top 10 most exciting sports to watch around